Hello and welcome to another video. This is the 5th episode of the story in which Naruto fails an exam for the second time, is duped by and then defeated Mizuki, and is given the opportunity to graduate early but does not take it. Now, with the determination to become strong enough to protect those he cares about, he will reach new heights. Please like and subscribe to show your support. Let's get the show started. Morning, hospital, Naruto's private room. I hope you wake up soon, Baka, said Sakura as she was sitting on the left side of Naruto's bed holding his left hand in her right one on her lap while her left hand were slowly going through his hair. You have to wake up, Baka. Everybody misses you. Inobuta cries a lot, Ayame-san can't work properly, Akira-san looks really sad, Sasuke-kun blames himself and trains even harder than normal, Hinata visited you many times in those almost 3 days that we were able to visit, even though her clan has it rough now. Sasuke-kun didn't want her to come in the first time she came to visit you, but Kakashi-sensei, who returned day after us, said Hinata is probably the only Hyuga that will sooner kill another Hyuga than hurt you. What's even more shocking is that Hinata really wanted to fight Sasuke-kun there for a second. Sigh, I miss you and your idiotic smile too. I'm learning medical ninjutsu and poison neutralization from Hana-sensei among other things, but you have to wake up, said a teary-eyed Pinkette as she squeezed Blonde's hand with her own. After some time she managed to compose herself and looked at the clock on the wall before her. It's already this hour, huh? She thought as she looked one last time at her teammate. I need to go, it would be bad if I'm late for my training, said the girl as she started raising from the bed. See ya, later Naruto, screamed Sakura as 2 arms wrapped around her waist and brought her back to the bed in a similar way to the incident in Nami no Kuni, and the boy was now spooning her. And Naruto, you have to wake up, ow, but I don't wanna, said the boy as he nuzzled into the back of her neck. Pinkette eyes widened and watered when she heard his voice after 4 long days. I like this dream very much so. It's not a dream, Naruto, said young Kunoichi. Course it is. The real Sakura-chan hates or at least dislikes me, just like she said at the day we officially became a team, said the blonde, and Pinkette's heart tightened painfully when she thought about that. Besides, real Sakura-chan would never allow me to do this, he said as he kissed her shoulder, channeling chakra through his lips, sending waves of pleasure through her body. Or this, he said as he kissed her higher and higher, and she moaned lightly. Or this, he said as he kissed her neck 2 times, making her moan again. Or this, he said as he bit her earlobe lightly and she moaned louder. And most of all, he said as he pushed flustered Sakura on her back and positioned himself above her and looked her in the eye. The real Sakura-chan would never allow me to kiss her, he said as he lowered himself, and the girl eyes widened. Naru MHM, she was interrupted when the boy captured her lips, as always using his experience from his training with Ayame. Sakura soon melted into the kiss as she put her hands behind his neck while his right hand was running up and down her left thigh, and just like that the kiss evolved into a makeout session, and Naruto used that she moaned into the kiss to put his tongue into use to deepen the kiss. After some time they had to separate from the lack of air, and flushed Naruto put his forehead against equally flushed Sakura's forehead. You have no idea how much I would like to kiss the real you like that, said the blonde as he lay down beside her, but it's probably better that way. I won't have to tell you about my status as a Jinchuriki, or that I'm last of my line in my clan. Jinchuriki, asked pink-haired Kunoichi. Yeah, you know, that yondaime sealed Kyubi in me asking this village to see me as a hero and all that shit, said last Royal Uzumaki. Course it didn't work and he sacrificed my childhood and happiness. Oh well, considering that Jinchuriki means power of human sacrifice, it's quite fitting. At least I'm not alone, as I thought with my roommate being with me all the time. Besides, he's funny once you get past all the threats. He has Kyubi sealed in him, thought Sakura as her eyes widen. Is that why people hate him? But that is cruel and stupid, she thought as she put her blushing head on his chest and asked, say Naruto, do you have many dreams with me like this? Well, Gigi said that they're normal for every healthy boy, he said as he closed his eyes, and Pinkette blushed. Most of them are just with you, but sometimes it's you and Ayame-chan, or you and Ino, or you and Ayano, or you, Rei and Mira, but you are always there. I need to ask what they gave me, because that kiss felt so real, I can still feel your taste in my mouth. Pervert, thought Sakura, oh yes. We're always there and we're going to be kissed and touched more. Mommy like it, added her inner persona, man, even in my own dream I got sleepy. Good night imaginary Sakura-chan, he said, then yawned and soon fell asleep. Once Sakura was sure he was sleeping she stood up and covered him. Baka, sleep well, Pinkette said and she kissed his forehead. I'm glad that you're okay, even if you're a little perverted. Baka, I really missed you, she said with a small smile. My Baka, she whispered lowly and blushed, mostly at how good she felt saying that. I really have to go now, or I'm gonna be late for my training. See you later, Baka, she said and with one last glance left the room. At Konoha's main gate, the tension was palpable as the daimyo of Hai no Kuni stood before Hiruzen Sarutobi and the assembled members of the council. Behind the daimyo stood his 12 ninja guardians and a sizable force of samurai, their presence intimidating, though they made no hostile movements. Welcome, daimyo-sama, Hiruzen greeted, bowing respectfully. To what do I owe the pleasure of meeting you a week earlier than anticipated? The daimyo's expression was grim, his gaze sharp as it met Hiruzen's. Please, Hiruzen Dano, don't pretend to be more foolish than you are. It does not suit you, and I don't have the patience for such pleasantries today. Hiruzen stiffened at the directness, but nodded in understanding. Of course, my lord. But... His eyes flicked toward the large group behind the daimyo. Why have you come with such a large company? The daimyo's tone was casual, almost dismissive. Isn't it obvious? I came to deal with a problem. But first, I have to talk with you and your council. His eyes briefly glanced at the assembled counselors before settling back on the Hokage. I would be grateful if your ANBU could escort my samurai to gather the Hyuga clan for a conversation. Hiruzen's eyes narrowed slightly, but he remained composed. As long as they do not start a genocide. The daimyo gave a small, cold smile. Without my direct order, they will not harm anyone who cooperates. He paused before continuing, now, let us proceed to your council chambers. I trust you won't mind my guardians accompanying us? Of course not, my lord, Hiruzen replied, gesturing for them to follow. Shall we go? Let's, the daimyo said simply, and with that, the group headed toward the council chambers. 20 minutes later, council chambers. The atmosphere inside the council chambers was heavy as the daimyo took his place before the Hokage and the council. Hiruzen sat at the head of the room, his face calm, though tension simmered beneath the surface. Well, daimyo-sama, what can we do for you today? Hiruzen asked, his tone measured. The daimyo's gaze swept across the room, his eyes lingering briefly on several of the civilian council members before addressing the Hokage. 2 months ago, Uzumaki Naruto Dano asked me to look into the village's finances. He was concerned about some irregularities he had noticed. At the mention of Naruto, several members of the civilian council visibly paled, a few shifting uncomfortably in their seats. One particularly bold council member, a civilian, couldn't help but sneer. You shouldn't listen to that demon. Daimyo-sama. He should never speak to someone as noble as you. The daimyo's gaze slowly turned to the man, his expression a mask of calm indifference, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of icy rage. Are you going to do something about this, Hokage Dano? He asked, his tone carrying the weight of expectation. Hiruzen's face darkened. Of course, my lord. Umbu. Take that man to Ibiki, no, the daimyo interjected, his voice cutting through the room like a blade. The time for talking and teaching is over. This village has already tried to kill Uzumaki Dano, and now your counselor has publicly insulted a friend of my family. Therefore, he has insulted me as well. I demand proper action be taken now. Hiruzen sighed inwardly, knowing that the daimyo wasn't here for mere words, he wanted retribution. Counselor, the Hokage began, his voice filled with authority, for publicly insulting the head of the Uzumaki clan, a friend to the daimyo of Hai no Kuni, and by extension, offending the daimyo himself, you have violated Konoha law. I hereby sentence you to death." The counselor's eyes widened in horror. "You can't do that. I am, Urk." His words were cut off as one of the Anbu swiftly thrust a blade into his heart, killing him instantly. The counselor's body crumpled to the floor with a dull thud. "Clean that up, please," Hiruzen said, his voice cold. As the Anbu dragged the lifeless body away, Hiruzen turned back to the daimyo. "You may continue, my lord." The daimyo nodded, the interruption already forgotten. "As I was saying, Uzumaki Dano's concerns were not unfounded. After looking into Konoha's finances, I discovered that funds allocated to essential services like the hospital, orphanages, the academy, and the library had been siphoned off into private accounts. Not only that, funds from both the Uzumaki and Namikaze family accounts, as well as the village treasury, were being funneled into accounts in foreign countries." There was a stunned silence as the implications of the daimyo's words sank in. Hiruzen's expression shifted from neutral to shock, and finally to barely contained fury. Several civilian council members began to sweat, their faces pale. "We can explain, Hokage-sama," one of the council members stammered, but his words only seemed to fuel the Hokage's growing rage. "Explain?" Hiruzen's voice was low but deadly. "Explain? You, who constantly praise the Yondaime Hokage as a hero, are stealing from him and his family's legacy. How dare you? How dare you steal from Konoha's hospital, orphanages, and academy?" The Hokage's chakra flared dangerously as he barked out his next command. "Umbu. Take every civilian council member, save for Danzo and Hana Kuranuma, to Ibiki and Anko. Make sure to recover every last Ryo they've stolen. And send in the accountants, they were complicit in this crime as well." "Hi, Hokage-sama." The Anbu swiftly moved to carry out his orders, detaining the guilty council members and escorting them out of the chambers. Hiruzen took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm of anger inside him. "Thank you, Daimyo-sama, for bringing this to light." The daimyo nodded, though his expression remained serious. The thanks should go to Uzumaki Naruto Dano. It was his love for this village that led him to ask for my assistance. Without his intervention, I would never have uncovered such disturbing truths. Hiruzen's face softened slightly at the mention of Naruto. "The boy has always had a strong sense of justice," he said quietly. "Now," the daimyo continued, his tone still formal, "I believe it is time to address the Hyuga clan." Shikaku Nara, who had remained silent until now, spoke up cautiously. "If I may, Daimyo-sama, is it wise to prosecute the Hyuga clan further? The elders responsible for the assassination attempt are already dead." The daimyo's eyes narrowed. "All responsible are dead, you say?" His tone was laced with skepticism. "It's easy for you to say, Nara-san. But tell me, would I hear the same from Yamanaka-san? His daughter was part of the team that was nearly killed. She made her first kill during that mission and was nearly killed herself, but for the intervention of Naruto Dano. The same can be said for Uchiha Sasuke and Haruno Sakura. Would I hear the same from their parents, Nara-san? Or from any of the families who nearly lost their children?" Shikaku, taken aback by the daimyo's directness, fell silent. The daimyo continued, addressing the entire room. "If one of your ambassadors caused an international incident, attempting to assassinate someone from another village, who would be held responsible?" "The ambassador," and the Hokage, Danzo said quietly, the realization dawning on him. "Precisely," the daimyo said. "The elders acted as representatives of the Hyuga clan. Their actions, or lack thereof, are a reflection of their entire clan's stance. Their silence was an acceptance of treason. And let me be clear," the daimyo's eyes hardened, the same acceptance you all showed during young Naruto Dano's upbringing is why you have forever lost my respect." His final words stung, leaving a heavy silence in their wake. Hiruzen, sensing the daimyo's intent, stood up. "Let us not delay further. This meeting is adjourned." With that, the Hokage and daimyo, flanked by the 12 ninja guardians, left the council chambers to confront the Hyuga clan, knowing that the next steps could very well decide their fate. As they walked through the streets of Konoha, Hiruzen silently hoped that Naruto would wake up soon. Because if he didn't, the repercussions for the Hyuga clan, and the village, would be far worse than anyone could have imagined. The atmosphere in the Hyuga clan's gathering room was heavy, a mixture of tension, anticipation, and fear as the daimyo and Hokage entered, their presence commanding immediate attention. Hayashi Hyuga, the clan head, stood at the front, his formal posture doing little to mask the unease in his eyes as he bowed deeply to greet them. "Welcome, daimyo-sama, Hokage-sama. What can I do for such noble guests?" Hayashi began, his voice measured, though a flicker of anxiety showed through. The daimyo's response was icy, cold enough to send a chill through the room. "You could always die and rot in hell along with the rest of your elders." His words hung in the air like a death sentence. Hiruzen Sarutobi shot a warning glance at the daimyo, though he didn't entirely disagree with the sentiment. "My lord, I think Naruto-kun's influence may have rubbed off on you a little too much." The daimyo raised his hands in mock surrender, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "What? I'm just talking." His gaze softened momentarily. "But my daughter says she likes me better this way." Naruto Dano has a way of making one care more for their family and their country. "It's not a bad influence at all, Hokage Dano." Hayashi remained silent, processing the exchange, but the tension never left his frame. The daimyo's attention shifted, scanning the crowd of Hyuga members gathered in the room. "But first things first," the daimyo said, his eyes settling on the shy figure near the back. "Which one of you is Hinata?" The room went deathly quiet, and a soft voice broke through the silence. It's me." Hinata stammered, her face burning with embarrassment and anxiety. She hesitated before stepping forward, her nerves palpable as she tried to shrink into her jacket. "Come closer, child," the daimyo instructed, his tone surprisingly gentle. The shy heiress walked slowly toward him, every step feeling like it carried the weight of her entire clan's reputation on her shoulders. She stopped in front of the daimyo and Hokage, her head lowered, hands fidgeting nervously. The daimyo gave her an appraising look, and she squirmed under the weight of his gaze. Now I understand why Naruto Dano has good taste in girls." Hinata's blush intensified, and she looked like she might melt into the floor at any moment. What do you mean, daimyo-sama?" she stuttered, her voice barely above a whisper. The daimyo chuckled, a warm, almost fatherly sound. "Before he left on his recent mission, Naruto wrote a letter to me and my grandson. He spoke highly of his training with a beautiful and cute blue-haired girl." He gave Hinata a kind smile. "That would be you, I assume." Hinata's eyes widened, her entire face now a bright shade of red. She hadn't expected to hear that Naruto had spoken of her, let alone to the daimyo himself. She could barely process what he was saying as he continued. "He wrote that you have a great deal of talent, just like his teammate Sakura Haruno. He believes in you. But he also mentioned that you lack self-confidence." The daimyo's eyes softened. "I hope that changes soon. I'd like to see you fight with all your strength in the upcoming Chunin exams, especially since you'll likely be competing against other girls vying for Naruto Dano's heart." Hinata's head shot up at that, her face a mixture of surprise and confusion. Naruto's heart, she thought, her mind spinning. The daimyo smiled knowingly. "Don't be so shocked, child. Naruto may be dense about certain things, but I assure you, it won't stay that way forever. If there is anyone in this village who deserves love, it's him." And you, Hinata, clearly have feelings for him. I'll give you one piece of advice: timing is important. Whether it's Ayame-san, Mira-san, Rei-san, or even that Kyumo Kunoichi, Ayano-san, someone will eventually confess to him. When that time comes, don't hesitate. Hinata's eyes glistened with gratitude and emotion, her heart racing as she processed his words. Why yes, I understand, Daimyo-sama. Thank you. She bowed deeply, tears of happiness threatening to spill over. The daimyo nodded. Good. Remember, the battle for his heart won't be easy, and there may not be only one winner. His position in this village and this world brings many things with it. He gestured for her to return to her place. Now, step back, child. Hinata did as instructed, her heart still pounding in her chest. Naruto-kun spoke of me to the daimyo. Her mind was a whirlwind of emotions, but one thing was clear: Naruto had faith in her. That alone was enough to make her feel braver than she had in a long time. The daimyo then turned his attention back to Hayashi, his tone shifting back to business. Now, Hayashi-san, explain to me how it's possible that you, as the head of this clan, allowed your elders to act freely for the past 10 years? Hayashi straightened, trying to compose himself. It was a single incident, my lord. I assure you, a single incident, the daimyo cut in, disbelief dripping from his words. He stretched out his hand, and one of his ninja guardians handed him a file. Your elders repeatedly forced your daughters to spar, belittling your eldest in particular. If Naruto-dano learns of this, and he will consider it a threat to one of his precious people, and the consequences will not be pleasant. Hayashi's face paled, and he glanced at his eldest daughter, who averted her eyes, holding back tears. Your elders have also misused that barbaric cage bird cursed seal. On multiple occasions, they inflicted it for petty reasons. One of your elders even forced a branch member into sexual servitude. The daimyo's voice was filled with disgust. Another punished branch members for the smallest accidents. Does this sound like a single incident to you? Hayashi's composure cracked, and shame washed over him. He hadn't been aware of the full extent of his elders' actions. Or perhaps, deep down, he had chosen to ignore it. He looked down at the ground, unable to meet the daimyo's gaze. The daimyo's voice turned sharper, his patience wearing thin. Your clan is slowly devouring itself from within, Hayashi-san. The only thing you've done right is blocking arranged marriages for your daughters. But from what Yamanaka's interrogation revealed, one of your elders groped Hinata's behind. If Naruto-dano finds out. He let the sentence hang in the air, but the implication was clear: Naruto would not take kindly to such treatment of his friend. Hayashi's fists clenched at his sides, his heart aching for his daughter. He muttered under his breath, maybe the clan's downfall would be for the best. The daimyo's eyes narrowed. Are you willing to sacrifice all of them? He gestured to the assembled clan members, each of them watching their leader intently. Guilt will not change anything, Hayashi-san. The council's decision to sacrifice Naruto-dano's childhood made all of you complacent. And now, this is the price you must pay. Before Hayashi could respond, a masked ANBU landed beside the Hokage. Hokage-sama, Uzumaki Naruto has woken up and is on his way here. Hiruzen's eyes widened. He's awake? He asked, his voice a mix of relief and surprise. The ANBU nodded. Yes. He refused to be carried, saying that while he's still weak, he can walk on his own. That sounds like Naruto, Hiruzen said with a small chuckle. Stubborn as always. The daimyo turned to Hayashi, his expression hardening once more. It seems you're in luck, Hayashi-san. Had Naruto not woken up, the punishment for this incident would have been far more severe. In my eyes, your clan deserves death for this betrayal. Hayashi swallowed thickly, unsure how to respond, his mind racing. The room fell into a tense silence as they waited for Naruto to arrive. Hinata, in particular, felt her heart race with a mixture of excitement and nerves. Naruto-kun was awake, alive. She couldn't stop the wave of relief that washed over her, and she found herself blushing at the thought of seeing him again. They didn't have to wait long. Barely 20 minutes later, the door opened, and Naruto walked in. He was still pale, clearly weakened by the ordeal, but his steps were steady, and his eyes were full of life. "Hey, GG. DGG." Naruto greeted with a cheeky smile, though his voice held a hint of exhaustion. "You two look like you just saw a ghost." Hiruzen chuckled, relieved beyond words to see the boy up and moving. "Are you alright, Naruto-kun?" "I've been better," Naruto admitted as he staggered slightly. An ANBU was quick to place a chair behind him, and Naruto sat down with a sigh. "But I could use a chair." "Thanks." The tension in the room eased a bit as his casual demeanor and sharp humor diffused the situation. "I feel like I'm as old as you look, Gigi," he added, making several people chuckle, including the Hokage. Daimyo smiled lightly, but the business at hand quickly came back into focus. "Naruto-dano, I'm glad to see you recovering," he said, his voice steady. Naruto's eyes flicked toward the gathered Hyugas. "So, what's going on here?" "We came to administer retribution," the daimyo said firmly. "For the incident," Hiruzen added, watching Naruto carefully. Naruto's expression sobered. "Retribution, huh?" Hayashi took a step forward, bowing deeply. "Yes, Naruto-san. While the harm done to the others involved in this incident cannot be ignored, you were the one who nearly lost your life. I owe you a great debt. You can ask for anything, land, money, jutsu, anything you desire." "Anything I want?" Naruto echoed, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. "Anything," Hayashi repeated, his tone sincere. Naruto stood up slowly, his movements careful, and began to walk toward Hinata, who looked up at him with wide, curious eyes. She blushed furiously as he stopped in front of her. "I'm a simple guy. I don't need much to be happy, just a bowl of ramen and my friends," Naruto said with a soft smile, his gaze warm as he looked at Hinata, who blushed even more under his attention. Then, to everyone's surprise, he gently took her hand and led her toward the front of the room, guiding her to stand beside him. "But if you want to give me something, make Hinata's dream a reality." Everyone in the room froze, especially Hinata. "My dream?" she thought, her heart racing as her emotions swirled into a chaotic whirlwind. Naruto's hand was warm on her back, and the look in his eyes was sincere. "Kind." Hayashi blinked in shock. "Her dream?" Naruto nodded. "Hinata wants to abolish the cage bird cursed seal." "That's what I want too." The collective intake of breath from the main house members was deafening, and the killing intent they directed at Hinata was immediate. But it was swiftly overshadowed by the wave of powerful, crimson-hued killing intent that Naruto unleashed in response. His eyes gleamed with barely restrained fury, warning them that any move against Hinata would be met with deadly consequences. "Thanks, Kurama," Naruto thought as he mentally thanked the Kyuubi for lending him its strength. "Tch, Kurama's growl echoed in his mind. "Love you too, buddy," Naruto joked internally. "Flesh bag," Kurama muttered, though there was no real venom behind the insult. The tension in the room reached its peak as Hayashi stared at Naruto in disbelief. "Is this the only way to settle things between us?" Naruto crossed his arms, his expression serious. "You said I could ask for anything. This is what I want. A happy Hinata." He gave a sidelong glance at the blushing girl beside him. "That's the only reason I'm even talking to you all right now." Hayashi's heart clenched at his words. Naruto was doing all of this for his daughter, not for any personal gain. It was humbling. "Very well," Hayashi said, his voice subdued. Within the week, the cage bird cursed seal will be abolished. You can't be serious, one of the elders, Hoshi, exclaimed. How will we protect the secrets of the Byakugan now? Naruto, his expression unreadable, offered a simple solution. I can create a new seal, one that protects the Byakugan without causing pain or suppressing freedom. You'll have the protection you want without the cruelty. Hayashi's eyes widened. You can make seals like that? Naruto shrugged nonchalantly. You guys have your chakra sealed right now, don't you? He looked over at Hiruzen. The Hokage nodded. Yes, Naruto-kun's seals are very advanced. He is, after all, our new seal master. Hoshi looked skeptical. You expect us to believe a boy your age has mastered Fuinjutsu? Naruto shrugged again, his attitude casual but confident. Believe what you want. I don't really care. But you have 3 days to decide. If you want my help, let me know. If not, then good luck. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm starving, and I'm going to Ichiraku for some ramen. You coming, Gigi? DGG? Hiruzen shook his head with a small smile. Not today, Naruto-kun. I have work to attend to. The daimyo chuckled. Tomorrow is my daughter's birthday, so I need to return to the palace. Naruto smiled. Did my gift reach her in time? The daimyo's face softened. Yes, and she'll love it. Though she'll be disappointed she couldn't meet you this time. Next time for sure, Naruto promised with a grin. Then, his attention shifted back to Hinata, whose blush had never fully faded. You hungry, Hinata? A little, she stammered, her heart skipping a beat. Naruto smiled, extending his hand to her again. Then let's go grab some ramen. Hinata glanced at her mother, who gave her a small, approving nod. Blushing fiercely, she took Naruto's hand. Naruto-kun wants to go with me, she thought, feeling her heart swell with joy. I'd love to, Naruto-kun. Naruto grinned, leading her out of the room. See ya later, Gigi. DGG. As they left, the daimyo turned back to Hayashi, his tone serious once more. Let me make one thing perfectly clear, if your clan tries something like this again, nothing will save you from the consequences. If Naruto Dano had died, I would have personally ensured that the Hyuga clan was wiped from the face of the earth. Hayashi bowed deeply. I understand, Daimyo-sama. Hiruzen added, I will send Anbu to unseal your clan's chakra tomorrow. But remember this, many people in the village will be on edge around your clan. You'll need to tread carefully. And I strongly advise you to take Naruto-kun up on his offer to help create a new seal. Not for your sake, but for the sake of your daughter. It's clear that his only concern is her happiness. Hayashi nodded solemnly, the weight of everything crashing down on him. As Hiruzen and the daimyo left, Hayashi stood in silence, the room around him eerily quiet. I think it would be wise to ask that boy for help, Elder Hoshi said, breaking the silence and surprising everyone. What? Elder Hiroshi barked. Are you really willing to bring an outsider so close to the secrets of our clan? Hoshi's gaze was steady, his voice calm. The girl, Hinata, made it clear that she would abolish the seal when she became clan head. It was only a matter of time. But more than that, she has proven that she's stronger than we gave her credit for. She will make a fine clan head, just like her grandmother. Hayashi closed his eyes, feeling the weight of responsibility settle heavily on his shoulders. It's time to start running damage control, he said quietly, his voice filled with both regret and resolve. There was much to do, but one thing was certain, the Hyuga clan would never be the same again. Naruto's life had always been a swirling mix of hardship, isolation, and misunderstood kindness. Yet now, as he walked into the Yamanaka flower shop, a place that once might have turned him away, the air felt different. More welcoming, though still uncertain. "Welcome to Yamanaka Flower Shop." Ako Yamanaka, Ino's mother, greeted him from behind the counter. Her eyes narrowed slightly, recognizing the blonde boy immediately. Uzumaki. Naruto. Naruto hesitated at the doorway, unsure of whether he should stay. "Yeah, if I'm not allowed here, I can just go." Ako waved her hand dismissively, though her tone remained firm. "No, you can stay. Although you are the reason behind my daughter's tears these past couple of days." Naruto's eyes widened in confusion. "Ino? She cried because of me? Why?" He scratched the back of his head, bewildered. "I didn't say anything mean to her, did I?" Ako smiled softly, seeing the genuine surprise in the boy's expression. He really didn't understand how much people cared for him. "She wasn't upset with you. She was worried for your life, Naruto. After all, you saved her." Naruto's face softened, and he looked away, embarrassed. "Concerned? Ino?" He still seemed baffled by the idea. "I didn't think she'd care that much. I mean, I think of her as a friend, but I thought she saw me as, well, more of an annoyance, like Sakura-chan usually does. I didn't know she'd cry over me almost dying." Ako studied Naruto quietly, seeing the vulnerability beneath the bravado. There was a sadness in his eyes, one he was used to hiding. She knew well enough the rough childhood he'd endured, partly because her own husband, Inoichi, had played a role in the village's treatment of Naruto. Ako felt a pang of guilt for the part they'd all played in his lonely upbringing. "Naruto, listen," Ako began, her voice softening. "The first time we met wasn't the best. Ino told me how you were only trying to be nice, and I almost made a mistake." Her words trailed off, a hint of regret in her voice. "But now, after what you did for my daughter, protecting her with your life, you have no idea how grateful I am." Naruto waved it off, as if saving someone's life was no big deal. "There's no reason to be that grateful. Ino, Sasuke, and Sakura-chan are all important, way more than me. If something happened to them, there'd be people who'd miss them, love them." He paused, looking down at his feet. "Sasuke has all his fangirls. Sakura-chan has her parents and Ino. Ino has you and her dad. People who love her. But me? Maybe Gigi, Akira-chan, Ayam-chan, and Tucci would be sad for a bit, but no one would cry over me for long." His voice was soft, almost accepting of this grim truth. "The village council sacrificed me a long time ago, so, it's not like I'm all that important." Ako's heart ached hearing him say that. Her husband had been part of that council, the group that had decided to shun Naruto, isolating him in a village that was supposed to protect him. To hear him speak about his own worth like this, with such nonchalance, only made her guilt worse. Before she could respond, Naruto broke the somber tone with a bright smile. "But hey, I'm not here to talk about boring stuff like that. I'm actually here to buy some flowers for all the girls who visited me in the hospital. You know, as a thank you for worrying about me." He handed her a small list, his handwriting a bit messy but legible. Ako scanned the list, raising her eyebrows when she saw Ino's name. "Amaryllis?" She smiled, looking up at him. "That's Ino-chan's favorite flower." Naruto smiled sheepishly. "Yeah, I figured I should get her something she likes. She came to see me in the hospital, after all. Along with Akira-chan, Nico-chan, Karoba-chan, Sakura-chan, Ayam-chan, and Hinata. They all took time to visit me, so I want to say thanks." Ako's smile deepened. "You're very thoughtful, Naruto." She turned to start gathering the flowers, glancing over her shoulder. "And don't worry about making them cry. I'm sure they're just glad you're alright now." Naruto laughed softly. "I hope so. I'm planning to apologize to all of them anyway, just in case I did something wrong. As Ako continued arranging the bouquets, she found herself thinking about the young man before her. He's kind, she thought. Much kinder than we all gave him credit for back then. She paused, glancing at him again. He's growing into a fine young man, far better than most give him credit for, certainly better than that Uchiha boy Ino used to like. You know, Naruto, Ako said, her voice light and teasing, you'd make a pretty good boyfriend someday. Naruto blushed, rubbing the back of his neck. Boyfriend? Me? Nah, no girl would want to date a guy like me. Ako chuckled. Oh, if only you knew, she thought, imagining how Ino, and several other girls, would have a very different opinion. Meanwhile, across town in the quiet halls of the Konoha Library, Sakura Haruno was on a mission of her own. She approached the librarian's desk, her curiosity burning in the back of her mind. Good morning, Sakura greeted as she stood before the older librarian. Good morning, the librarian responded kindly, peering over her reading glasses. What can I do for you, dear? I'm looking for any books you have on the Uzumaki clan, Sakura said, her tone determined. The librarian raised an eyebrow, her expression becoming more guarded. Uzumaki, you say? That's quite the old and noble clan, like the Senju or Uchiha. Most of their records are kept in the older section of the library. Sakura nodded, but the librarian continued, clearly more animated now. Although, she added with a sigh, good luck finding any. That blonde troublemaker's been borrowing every book he can find on the subject. Sakura's eyes widened in surprise. Blonde troublemaker? You mean Naruto? The librarian nodded. Yes, yes. He's been coming in for months, taking out books left and right. If something's missing from the shelves, it's probably because of him. He's a surprisingly avid reader. Naruto reads all those books? Sakura asked, still reeling from the shock. The image of Naruto sitting in a library, reading about ancient clans, was hard to reconcile with the loud, ramen-loving goofball she knew. Surprisingly, yes, the librarian confirmed, a fond smile on her face. He's been making up for lost time, you see. He wasn't allowed in the library when he was younger, so now he's practically devouring the knowledge. He's always returning with new books from his adventures, as he calls them. He even brought us a few volumes we didn't have. And, you know, he's a good boy. Dense as a rock, though. She chuckled, shaking her head. He told me stories about some poor Hyuga girl who has a crush on him. He doesn't even notice. Sakura's heart sank at the mention of Hinata, the image of the shy, blushing girl flashing through her mind. He doesn't realize, she muttered to herself. The librarian waved her hand dismissively. Oh, but I'm rambling. The Uzumaki clan records should be in the old part of the library. Just head through that door and follow the corridor. Thank you, Sakura said, nodding as she headed toward the old wing of the library. As she stepped into the dimly lit hallway, Sakura felt a knot of guilt twist in her chest. Naruto had been reading, studying, trying to better himself this whole time, and she'd barely noticed. As she pushed open the door to the old section, she made a silent vow to herself, she would learn everything she could about the Uzumaki clan. She would understand him better. Because Naruto deserved that much. And deep down, a small voice whispered, maybe he deserves even more than that. Inside the Hyuga compound, a ripple of quiet amusement spread between the family members as they made their way home. Hayashi, however, was less amused. The day had certainly not gone as expected. Naruto's frankness and blunt approach had left him feeling both unsettled and, in an odd way, relieved. There was something about the boy that had managed to calm even the brewing storm that had been the Hyuga clan's internal politics. As Hayashi continued to contemplate, his wife, Hina, nudged him playfully. You're brooding again, dear, she said, her voice light but knowing. She could read her husband's thoughts as easily as anyone could read an open book. You should be grateful for Naruto-san's help, even if his methods are unconventional. Hayashi grunted, reluctant to admit his gratitude. Grateful, yes. But that boy is far too bold for his own good. And for Hinata's. Is he, though? Hina mused, her eyes flickering with something close to pride. I think he's exactly what she needs. He's the first person to truly believe in her without any doubt, and she's blossoming because of it. Surely, as her father, you can see that. Hayashi remained silent, his thoughts whirling. It was true, since Naruto had entered her life, Hinata had grown stronger, more confident. It was a change Hayashi could no longer ignore, no matter how much his traditional sensibilities struggled against it. And it wasn't just Hinata. Hanabi, too, had taken an immediate liking to the boy, despite his informal demeanor. Meanwhile, behind them, Hanabi was still smiling to herself, her mind racing with thoughts of Naruto. She wasn't sure what to make of him, he was so different from everyone she had ever met, but she liked that. He treated her like an equal, not some delicate flower or heiress-in-waiting, and that alone earned her respect. Back in Naruto's home, Anko Mitarashi finished her shower, stepping out of the bathroom and glancing at herself in the mirror. She wore only the bathrobe Naruto had provided, her mind still spinning from the experience she had just been through. Naruto had succeeded in removing the cursed seal Orochimaru had placed on her all those years ago. It wasn't just the success of the sealing process that left her reeling, though, it was the way Naruto had handled everything. He was just a kid, but the level of care and concentration he displayed had been nothing short of astounding. Sure, there had been moments of awkwardness, especially considering the nature of the procedure, but Anko had never felt so safe. And then there was the matter of how he'd unknowingly indulged in her fluids after she'd, well, lost control. It was oddly innocent, as if he didn't quite understand the implications of what he was doing. She hadn't missed the blush on his cheeks or the way his hands had trembled slightly, but he'd stayed focused. Most men wouldn't have. Anko let out a soft chuckle, her fingers trailing through her wet hair. That brat, she whispered to herself, amused. But beneath the humor, there was something else, something warmer. She had spent years living with the mark of Orochimaru on her body, feeling like damaged goods, a ticking time bomb. But now, thanks to Naruto, that mark was gone. She was free. Maybe he's not such a brat after all, she mused aloud, glancing toward the door where Naruto had disappeared moments earlier. In the kitchen, Naruto had already started cleaning up, his mind finally free of the tension that had built up over the sealing process. It had taken every ounce of his control to keep his concentration, especially with Anko being, well, Anko. She had a way of making everything feel like a challenge, testing his limits, but Naruto had powered through it. Now, though, he was exhausted. The knock on the door had been a welcome distraction, even if it had been the Hyuga family. He had done what he could for them, and now he had a new project on his hands, creating a better seal to replace the Hyuga's cursed mark. It would take time, but Naruto was confident he could do it. After all, Fuinjutsu was his specialty, even if he didn't think much of his own abilities. Still, the whole interaction with the Hyugas had left him thinking about Hinata. He hadn't expected to like her so much, not in the way he liked Sakura or even some of the other girls he'd met on his missions. Hinata was different. She was quiet but strong in her own way, and she didn't look at him like everyone else did. She's kind, he muttered to himself as he scrubbed at the sink, the image of her soft smile and shy gaze flashing in his mind. He remembered the way she had blushed when they ate ramen together. The way she had looked at him with so much trust in her eyes. It made him feel strange. Oi, brat. Anko's voice snapped him out of his thoughts as she sauntered into the kitchen, now fully dressed but still with that teasing glint in her eyes. You gonna make me dinner, or what? Naruto smirked, grabbing a towel to dry his hands. Depends. You gonna stop trying to jump me every time I turn my back? Enko laughed, her wild, carefree demeanor back in full force. Can't make any promises. But you owe me, you know. That ceiling stuff took a lot out of me. Naruto rolled his eyes but couldn't help grinning. Yeah. Sit down, snake lady. I'll make you something to eat. As Enko plopped down into a chair, watching him with a mix of amusement and something softer, Naruto realized something. He wasn't alone anymore. He had people in his life, people who cared about him. Whether it was Enko's teasing, Sakura's kindness, Hinata's quiet strength, or even Hayashi's begrudging respect, Naruto had a place in the world. And, someday soon, he was going to change that world for the better. One seal at a time. Back at the Hyuga compound, Hanabi tugged at her mother's sleeve, her eyes wide with curiosity. Mama, do you think Nae-sama will marry Naruto-san someday? Hina smiled down at her youngest daughter, her eyes twinkling. Perhaps, Hanabi-chan. Perhaps. But that is something only your sister and Naruto-san can decide. Hanabi thought about this for a moment before nodding, satisfied with the answer. Well, I think they'd make a good couple. Hayashi, walking just ahead, said nothing, but the idea weighed on his mind. The thought of his eldest daughter marrying Naruto, Uzumaki Naruto, was not something he had ever considered. And yet, as much as he resisted the idea, a part of him knew that the boy had a strength that could not be ignored. Whether he liked it or not, Naruto was becoming a force to be reckoned with, and the Hyuga clan would be wise to recognize that. As they walked toward the heart of the compound, Hayashi couldn't help but glance at his wife, who met his gaze with a knowing smile. Well, dear husband, her expression seemed to say, things are changing, whether we like it or not. Hayashi sighed inwardly. Damn that Uzumaki brat. In Naruto's home, as he worked in the kitchen, a soft, contented smile crossed his face. Everything was changing. But for the first time in a long time, that didn't seem like a bad thing. The late afternoon sun hung low in the sky as the remaining members of Team 7 stood in silence, processing the whirlwind of events that had just taken place. Kakashi had vanished, probably to sulk over his new collection of books, and Nico's parting words to Sakura hung heavily in the air. Sakura was still pale, her heart racing from the threat Nico had made. It wasn't the first time someone had warned her about Naruto's feelings, but the seriousness in Nico's voice had struck a chord deep inside her. She knew that Naruto cared for her, he had been her friend and teammate through thick and thin, but to hear it so openly, and with such dire consequences for betraying his trust, had shaken her more than she cared to admit. Sakura, came Sasuke's voice, calm but with an edge of curiosity. He had watched the entire exchange with that quiet, observant look he always wore when something serious was going on. You good? She blinked, pulling herself out of her thoughts. Why yeah. I'm fine, Sasuke-kun. HN. Sasuke didn't push further, but he glanced at her with something almost like concern before turning his attention back to the direction Naruto had left. The blonde's words to Hana had been fierce, sharper than Sakura had ever heard from him. It was almost like watching a different person, someone with power and a level of authority that neither she nor Sasuke had expected. This wasn't the same Naruto from the academy, the loudmouth with big dreams and reckless confidence. This was someone far more complicated. Sasuke couldn't deny that a part of him respected Naruto more now than ever. Despite the ridiculousness of his personality, his rivalry with Naruto was real, and the boy had been growing stronger and more capable with each passing day. It wasn't just physical strength either, it was the way Naruto commanded respect, even from their senseis, and how people who once looked down on him now treated him like an equal, even a superior. It made Sasuke all the more determined to beat him and become stronger. I didn't think he'd take it that seriously, Hana said softly, breaking the silence. She had her arms crossed, looking off into the distance where Naruto had disappeared. Her usual confident demeanor was gone, replaced by something much more subdued. The weight of her words earlier, the insinuation that Naruto could abandon his team, had struck deep, and she could feel the ripple effects of it in every part of her body. She had underestimated him, and worse, she had insulted him in a way she hadn't fully realized until Nico's warning. He takes things seriously when it comes to people he cares about, Sakura said quietly, her voice steadier now. He's not like us. Hana glanced at her, curious. What do you mean? Sakura hesitated, her eyes dropping to the ground as she gathered her thoughts. Naruto's different from everyone in the village. We all grew up with family, friends, people who cared about us. But he didn't. He was alone for so long, and now that he has people, friends, precious people, he'll protect them with everything he has. He's not like us, because we've never had to fight so hard to keep the people we love close. Sasuke was quiet as Sakura spoke, but inside, her words resonated. He understood the feeling of being alone, of losing everything and everyone. The difference was that while Sasuke had closed himself off, focusing solely on revenge, Naruto had opened himself to the world. It was a path Sasuke couldn't understand, yet. Well, I'll have to make things right, Hana said, her voice determined now. Naruto's a good kid. If I don't apologize properly, I'll end up with more than just a prank on my hands. Sakura nodded. You should. He'll forgive you, but, yeah, it's best not to wait too long. Sasuke, still silent, glanced at the two girls before he started walking. I'm leaving. Sakura turned to him, blinking in surprise. Where are you going, Sasuke-kun? Training, he said simply, not looking back. See you tomorrow. Sakura watched him go, her hands clenching at her sides. Sasuke's retreat was typical, but it still stung. He was always focused on becoming stronger, always moving forward on his path to revenge, leaving everything and everyone else behind. But today had been different. Today, Naruto had been the one who stood out. He had been the one with the power, the command, and the authority. He had been the one who drew the line between protecting his precious people and the rest of the world. And, for once, Sasuke had been the one left in the background. As much as she wanted to deny it, Sakura couldn't help but feel a strange sense of pride in Naruto. He had changed, more than any of them had realized. Meanwhile, Naruto sprinted through the streets of Konoha, his thoughts racing as fast as his feet. Nico had appeared out of nowhere to drag him to the hospital, but what really bothered him was what had happened with Hana. He hadn't meant to get that angry, but when she had accused him of abandoning his team, something inside him had snapped. Abandon his team? How could she think that? His whole life, Naruto had been abandoned by others, by the villagers, by people who should have cared about him. But never, not once, had he ever thought of abandoning someone he cared about. He wasn't that kind of person, and to hear Hana accuse him of it, even unintentionally, had cut deep. Ugh, I need to calm down, he muttered under his breath, pushing himself to run faster. The cool evening air hit his face, helping to clear his head. By the time he reached the hospital, some of the tension had eased, though the frustration still lingered. He skidded to a stop at the entrance, catching his breath. Nico wasn't far behind, landing gracefully beside him. You okay, Naruto-kun? She asked, her tone softer now. Yeah, I'm fine, he said, his voice a little hoarse from the run. He shot her a grin. Guess I needed to blow off some steam. Nico gave him a knowing look but didn't push further. Well, let's get this checkup over with. You're lucky Maki-san likes you, or else I'd have had to carry you here kicking and screaming. Naruto laughed, though it felt a little forced. Right. Let's get this over with. As the evening went on, the village seemed to quiet down, though a subtle tension was brewing beneath the surface. Word of the upcoming Chunin exams had already begun to spread, and with it, the whispers of which teams would participate. Kumo, Kiri, and the other great nations were sending their best, and Konoha's genin would have to be ready. But for Naruto, the exams were just another challenge. One more step on his path to becoming Hokage. As he walked through the hospital doors with Nico, a strange sense of calm washed over him. Whatever the future held, whether it was the exams, Kumo's wrath, or his own complicated feelings, he would face it head-on. Just like he always had. Back at the training grounds, Sakura lingered a little longer, staring out at the fading sunlight. Her thoughts were still on Naruto, on everything he had said and everything he had become. Maybe, she thought to herself, maybe I've been looking at him the wrong way all along. And with that quiet revelation, she turned and made her way home, a soft, conflicted smile on her face. Tomorrow, the real training would begin. For all of them. Ino's face was as red as a tomato, her heart racing as she processed everything her mother had just said. The idea of being in love with Naruto, a boy she had barely noticed during their time at the academy, the boy who was always so loud, clumsy, and constantly chasing after Sakura, wasn't something she had ever considered seriously before. But now, the more she thought about it, the more confusing everything became. Her mother's teasing only made it worse. "Ka-chan, stop it. I told you, I like Sasuke-kun," she insisted, even though her own voice betrayed her uncertainty. Ako smiled warmly, her eyes soft with understanding. "Ino, darling, feelings can be complicated. You don't have to figure it all out right now. Just, listen to your heart. Sometimes it knows what you need even when your head tries to convince you otherwise." Ino sighed deeply, running a hand through her blonde hair. Why did Naruto have to go and give her that necklace? It was stunning, more beautiful than anything she'd ever received before, and it made her feel special in a way that Sasuke never had. It wasn't just the necklace, though. Naruto had been different lately. More confident, more thoughtful, and, well, just more. And the way he looked at her, the way he complimented her, it was so genuine, so warm. She touched the necklace hanging around her neck and glanced at her mother, who was now busy arranging some flowers. Ako hummed softly, clearly enjoying the effect her words had on her daughter. "I'll be upstairs getting ready for the party," Ino said quickly, eager to escape her mother's knowing gaze. She turned and hurried out of the shop, making her way to her room. Once inside, she sat down on her bed, the box Naruto had given her still in her hands. She opened it again and stared at the beautiful necklace, her heart fluttering as she ran her fingers over the gemstones. This is crazy, she thought. Naruto was just being nice. He's like that with everyone, right? But then she thought about the way he had looked at her when he gave her the necklace, how he had complimented her, how he had put the flower behind her ear. That wasn't something he did for everyone. That was personal. Ino shook her head, trying to clear her thoughts. Focus on Sasuke, she told herself. Sasuke's the one you want. He's the one you've always wanted. But her heart wasn't as convinced as her head was. Ever since the mission to Nami no Kuni, things had changed. She had seen a side of Naruto that she hadn't before, a side that was brave, selfless, and, dare she say it, charming. He had saved her life without hesitation, and ever since then, she couldn't stop thinking about him. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. "Ino?" her father's voice called from the other side. "Yeah, Dad," she answered, quickly hiding the necklace in her bedside drawer. The door opened slightly, and Inoichi Yamanaka peeked his head in. "I just wanted to remind you that your friends will be here soon. Are you ready?" Ino forced a smile and nodded. "Yeah, I'll be down in a minute." Inoichi gave her a warm smile. "All right. Happy birthday, sweetheart." "Thanks, Dad," she replied, watching as he closed the door behind him. With a sigh, Ino stood up and glanced at herself in the mirror. She had already picked out a nice outfit for the party, but she found herself reaching for the necklace again. She hesitated for a moment before clasping it around her neck. As she looked at her reflection, a part of her couldn't help but think about what her mother had said. If the boy makes you feel special, if he makes you smile, if he makes your heart race. Her fingers brushed the necklace again, and a small smile tugged at her lips. The party was already in full swing when Ino made her way downstairs. The Yamanaka family's living room was filled with the familiar faces of her friends. Sakura, Shikamaru, Choji, and even Sasuke stood near the snack table, looking as aloof as ever. Sakura waved at her excitedly, and Ino returned the gesture with a smile. But her thoughts kept drifting back to the earlier encounter with Naruto. Sasuke had come, just as she'd hoped, but she couldn't bring herself to feel the same excitement she used to. Her eyes kept scanning the room, as if expecting someone else to show up. "Happy birthday, Ino," Sakura said as she approached, handing her a small gift. "I hope you like it." "Thanks, forehead," Ino teased, slipping back into her usual banter. But even as they exchanged light-hearted jabs, her thoughts were elsewhere. "Hey, Ino," Shikamaru greeted, walking over with his usual bored expression. "How's it going?" "Good, good," Ino replied, trying to keep her tone light. "Glad you could make it." Shikamaru gave her a knowing look, his sharp eyes catching the subtle shifts in her mood. "Something on your mind?" Ino blinked, caught off guard by the question. What? "No, nothing. Just, birthday stuff." Shikamaru said, clearly not buying it. "Well, if you need to talk, I'm around. But don't expect me to get involved in anything troublesome." Ino smirked at that, appreciating his usual lazy charm. "Thanks, Shikamaru." As the evening wore on, Ino found herself mingling with her guests, trying her best to enjoy the party. But her mind kept drifting back to Naruto. She couldn't stop thinking about how he had made her feel earlier, how he had given her that necklace without expecting anything in return, how he had complimented her in a way that felt so genuine. By the time Sasuke finally approached her, offering a quiet, happy birthday, she felt disconnected. She had spent years pining for his attention, but now that she had it, it didn't feel the way she thought it would. "Thanks, Sasuke-kun," she said, offering him a smile, but it felt hollow. Sasuke nodded once, his expression unreadable, before turning and walking back to his spot near the wall. He had come to the party, but he was as distant as ever. "What am I doing?" Ino thought to herself. "Why am I still chasing after someone who doesn't even care if I'm here?" Her hand absent-mindedly touched the necklace again, and a thought crossed her mind that she couldn't shake. Maybe, just maybe, Naruto was the one who made her feel special. And maybe, just maybe, she had already fallen for him. As the party continued, Ino's heart raced with the realization that her feelings might be more complicated than she had ever thought. In the blink of an eye, Naruto and Hinata disappeared from Training Ground 17, sunshining straight to the Hyuga compound. The air around them swirled as the world settled into focus again, the tall gates of the compound coming into view. Hinata's heart raced, not only from the sudden teleportation but from the fact that Naruto was still carrying her in his arms, bridal style. She couldn't help but blush even deeper, feeling the warmth of his body and the strength of his arms. As soon as they arrived, Naruto gently placed Hinata down, making sure she was steady on her feet. He flashed her a soft, reassuring smile, and despite her embarrassment, she couldn't help but smile back, feeling a flutter in her chest. "You okay?" he asked, rubbing the back of his head awkwardly. "Didn't mean to surprise you too much." I am fine," Hinata stuttered, still catching her breath, her cheeks a bright shade of red. Thank you, Naruto-kun." Naruto chuckled, giving her a thumbs up. "Anytime." Before the moment could linger, they both turned their attention toward the grand doors of the Hyuga compound. It was a day of reckoning for the clan, a day that could change everything. The elders had finally agreed to meet and allow Naruto to implement the new seal he had designed, one that would abolish the cursed caged bird seal that had tormented the Hyuga branch members for generations. As they approached the entrance, the gates slowly creaked open, revealing Hayashi Hyuga, Hinata's father, standing tall and composed, as always. Behind him stood the entire Hyuga clan, both the main family and the branch members, all gathered for this monumental moment. The atmosphere was tense, filled with a mixture of anticipation, fear, and hope. The branch members, in particular, seemed to be holding their breath, waiting for the outcome of the sealing process that could potentially free them from their long-standing burden. Uzumaki, Hayashi said, his voice calm and measured, yet carrying the weight of the situation. He nodded toward Naruto in acknowledgement, though there was a hint of respect in his eyes. "Thank you for coming. We are ready." Naruto, standing tall in the face of the entire Hyuga clan, gave a respectful nod back. Despite his usual carefree demeanor, he understood the gravity of what was about to happen. This wasn't just about proving his skills as a seal master, it was about giving freedom and dignity back to the branch members of the Hyuga clan. And to him, that was worth more than any praise or recognition. "I've got the seal prepared," Naruto said, stepping forward with a confident smile, though there was a flicker of seriousness in his eyes. "It won't be easy, but I can do it. I'll make sure everyone's safe." Hinata watched him with a mixture of awe and admiration. She had always known Naruto was special, his unwavering belief in others, his strength, and his kindness, but seeing him here, standing before her entire clan, offering to help lift a burden that had weighed them down for centuries, only deepened her feelings for him. The clan members began to gather around, forming a wide circle. The elders stood closer to Hayashi, their expressions unreadable, though a few of them still carried doubt and suspicion in their eyes. This was, after all, a huge leap of faith for the Hyuga clan. Trusting someone outside of their bloodline to alter such a fundamental part of their traditions was not something done lightly. But Naruto had proven himself time and time again, and Hayashi had vouched for him. That alone held significant weight. "Are you certain this will work?" one of the elders asked, his tone cautious but not overtly hostile. Naruto scratched the back of his head, a slightly sheepish grin spreading across his face. "Well, I'm about 99.9% sure," he said, trying to lighten the mood, though he quickly added, "but I've tested the theory on smaller seals. This seal is more advanced, and it's designed to protect the Byakugan while removing the harmful part of the caged bird seal. It'll work." Hayashi raised his hand, silencing the murmurs of the gathered clan. "We trust in your abilities, Naruto. Proceed." Naruto nodded, focusing now. He quickly pulled out a scroll from his pouch, unrolling it across the ground. The scroll itself was filled with complex seals and markings, an intricate web of chakra pathways that, once activated, would sync with the existing caged bird seals. Naruto moved toward the center of the circle, his fingers moving rapidly through a series of hand signs. His expression shifted from his usual playful demeanor to one of intense concentration. "Everyone with the caged bird seal, please step forward," Naruto instructed. One by one, the branch members, including Hinata's cousin Neji, moved to stand within the circle, their expressions a mix of hope and fear. Neji stood closest, his eyes focused and determined, though there was a flicker of surprise in them as he looked at Naruto. For so long, Neji had been trapped by the very seal that had determined his fate, but here was Naruto, the boy he once saw as nothing more than a loudmouth failure, now standing before him, about to change everything. Naruto placed his hands on the scroll, his chakra flaring to life as it connected with the sealing array. The air grew thick with tension as the seals began to glow faintly, the chakra within them swirling and coalescing into intricate patterns. The markings extended toward the branch members, connecting with their caged bird seals. "This might sting a bit," Naruto warned, though his voice was calm and reassuring. He glanced up at Neji and the others. But just hang in there, okay? Niji gave a slight nod, his Byakugan activated, as if he was watching every minute detail of the process. With a final hand sign, Naruto pressed his palm against the ground, and the sealing array activated fully. The glow intensified, and a wave of energy surged through the field, enveloping the branch members. They all winced as they felt the seal react, a brief spike of pain flashing through their foreheads where the caged bird seal resided. But then, something incredible happened. The pain subsided, and the oppressive weight that had once bound them, the constant reminder of their servitude, began to lift. One by one, the black marks of the caged bird seal faded, dissolving into nothingness. The branch members looked around in shock, their hands instinctively reaching for their foreheads, feeling the absence of the seal that had been there for as long as they could remember. It's gone," one of the branch members whispered in disbelief. "I can't feel it anymore." Niji's eyes widened as he too felt the absence of the curse. He glanced at Naruto, his expression one of quiet astonishment. "You actually did it." Naruto grinned, standing up and dusting off his hands. "Told ya. No need to worry." The entire Hyuga compound seemed to hold its breath for a moment, the weight of what had just happened sinking in. And then, slowly, murmurs of disbelief and awe spread through the crowd. The branch members, free for the first time in their lives, looked at one another with expressions of joy and disbelief. Hinata, who had been watching the entire process in awe, felt her heart swell with pride. She couldn't help but feel tears welling up in her eyes again, but this time they were tears of pure joy. She looked at Naruto, her heart overflowing with gratitude and affection. Hayashi stepped forward, his gaze resting on Naruto. "You have done something that no one in this clan thought possible. For that, I owe you a great debt, Naruto." Naruto scratched the back of his head, grinning sheepishly. "Ah, don't worry about it, Hayashi-san. I did it for Hinata and the others. They deserve it." Niji, still processing the enormity of what had just happened, stepped forward as well, his eyes meeting Naruto's. "You freed us." "Thank you." Naruto gave him a wide grin. "No problem, Niji. Now you can focus on getting even stronger, just don't forget that I'm still gonna beat you one day." Niji's lips twitched into the faintest of smiles, a rare expression for him. "We'll see about that." As the Hyuga clan members began to disperse, murmuring among themselves, Naruto turned to Hinata, who was still standing by his side, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "Hey, you okay?" he asked softly. Hinata nodded, smiling through her tears. "Thank you, Naruto-kun. You've done so much for us. I don't know how to repay you." Naruto grinned, his blue eyes twinkling. "No need to repay me, Hinata. Just keep believing in yourself. That's all I need." And with that, the two stood side by side, the weight of the moment sinking in. The Hyuga clan had been changed forever, and it was all thanks to Naruto, his unwavering belief in his friends and his determination to help those he cared about. As the sun began to set over Konoha, the future of the Hyuga clan seemed brighter than ever. And for Hinata, her feelings for Naruto only grew stronger, her heart full of hope for whatever lay ahead. As Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura continued their walk towards the exam room, the tension that had been bubbling among them after their encounter with Rock Lee slowly dissipated. Naruto seemed more energized than ever, though that was hardly surprising. It was Naruto, after all. Sasuke, for his part, was already thinking about the upcoming test, his mind focused on strategies and his rivals. And Sakura, well, her heart was still racing after that encounter with Rock Lee and his surprising proclamation of love for her. But more than anything, Sakura couldn't stop thinking about what Sasuke had said earlier about her feelings for Naruto. Her emotions were a tangled mess, and the more she tried to deny what Sasuke had pointed out, the harder it was to ignore the growing realization deep inside her. The three of them finally reached the door to the room where the first part of the Chunin exams would be held. The door creaked slightly as they pushed it open and stepped inside. The room was packed with genin from all over, each one looking ready to fight and prove their worth. The tension was palpable, almost suffocating. Conversations were kept to whispers, and all around them, eyes shifted towards new arrivals, measuring up the competition. Naruto stepped in confidently, his hands behind his head, completely unaffected by the pressure in the room. Sasuke followed, his eyes scanning the crowd, already looking for any potential threats. Sakura, meanwhile, stayed close to her teammates, her gaze also wandering across the room but more out of curiosity than the paranoia of a shinobi about to enter battle. "There sure are a lot of people," Naruto said with a grin, his voice carrying over the low murmur of the room. "This is gonna be fun." "Try to be quiet for once, Dobe," Sasuke muttered, earning a scowl from Naruto. Before they could exchange more words, a familiar voice called out. "Hey! Sasuke-kun! Naruto! Sakura!" The trio turned to see Ino, Shikamaru, and Choji making their way over. Ino, as always, made a beeline for Sasuke, her usual enthusiasm on full display. "Sasuke-kun!" Ino practically sang, brushing her hair behind her ear in an obvious attempt to catch his attention. "I knew you'd be here. I mean, I expected nothing less from you." Sasuke simply offered a non-committal grunt, earning a mock glare from Naruto, who muttered under his breath, "Always gets all the attention." Ino ignored Naruto, as she often did, and turned to Sakura with a teasing smile. "And you too, forehead? Still chasing after my Sasuke-kun, I see." Sakura's eye twitched, but before she could fire back, Naruto stepped in between them, waving his hands to keep the peace. "Come on, you two. Let's not start a catfight right before the exams." Ino huffed but dropped the teasing, while Sakura crossed her arms, clearly annoyed. Shikamaru, who had been lazily standing nearby, yawned. "This is already such a drag. Can't believe we're actually doing this." "Stop complaining, Shikamaru. This is what we've been training for," Choji said, munching on a bag of chips as usual. "It'll be over before you know it." As they stood together, Kiba, Hinata, and Shino soon joined them, rounding out the rookie 9 who had all entered the exams. "Yo!" Kiba greeted, his usual cocky grin plastered on his face. "Looks like everyone made it." "Of course we did," Naruto said proudly, puffing out his chest. "We're all gonna ace this." Hinata, who was standing just a little behind Kiba, shyly looked at Naruto. "Gee, good luck, and Naruto-kun," she said softly, blushing as her hands fidgeted in front of her. Naruto, ever oblivious to her feelings, grinned at her in return. "Thanks, Hinata. Good luck to you too." As the group exchanged a few more words, the tension in the room seemed to thicken. The genin from the various villages were now sizing each other up more openly, the atmosphere growing more competitive with each passing second. It wasn't long before a man with a bandana and scars on his face entered the room. He wore the standard Konoha uniform, though his presence demanded authority. His dark eyes scanned the room before he smirked. "All right, settle down," he called out, his voice immediately cutting through the chatter. "I'm Marino Ibiki, and I'll be the proctor for this first part of the Chunin exams. Take a seat. We're about to begin." The room immediately quieted, and everyone scrambled to find their seats. Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura were quick to sit together, their minds now focused on the task ahead. "First, let's go over the rules," Ibiki continued, his voice cold and professional. "This is a written test. You'll have an hour to complete it. Each wrong answer will deduct points from your overall score, and if you're caught cheating, well, you'll be escorted out immediately." A ripple of unease spread through the room. Cheating, for most shinobi, was part of their craft. But the idea of getting caught and immediately failing the exam? That added a whole new level of pressure. Ibiki smirked, clearly enjoying the tension. If you're caught cheating 5 times, you and your team will be disqualified. So be careful. Now, let's begin. Naruto gulped. Written tests were not his strong suit. His brain wasn't wired for sitting still and filling out papers. He much preferred action and instinct over reading questions and scribbling down answers. He glanced nervously at Sakura, who was already scribbling away confidently. Sasuke, of course, looked calm and focused. Okay, Naruto, you can do this, he thought to himself, trying to psych himself up. Just don't get caught. The clock ticked away as the first part of the Chunin exams officially began. As the test continued, Naruto quickly realized something. The questions were way beyond his comprehension. There was no way a normal genin could know the answers to these questions, unless they were a prodigy like Sasuke or someone with a photographic memory like Sakura. That's when it hit him. This isn't a normal test. It's about information gathering. It's all about cheating. A sly grin crept onto Naruto's face. If that's what this was, then he just needed to cheat, without getting caught. But how? A few moments passed as he looked around, noticing other genin discreetly glancing at their teammates or using subtle signals. He had to admit, some of the cheating methods were impressive. But Naruto was different, he didn't have to rely on sneaky hand signs or coded signals. He had a plan. As Naruto subtly placed his hands together under the desk, he created a shadow clone that appeared behind him. The clone carefully dispersed, transforming into a nearly invisible wisp of chakra that hovered through the room, peeking over shoulders and gathering answers from the smarter genin. Meanwhile, Naruto sat calmly at his desk, pretending to struggle over the questions while his clone did the real work. Sasuke, who had been sitting nearby, glanced at Naruto out of the corner of his eye and smirked. He's not as clueless as he looks. Minutes passed, and Naruto's clone returned, giving him the answers he needed. He quickly scribbled down the correct responses, doing his best to look like he was genuinely thinking through each one. Finally, as the last seconds ticked away, Ibiki raised his hand. Time's up. Put down your pencils. Naruto dropped his pencil, letting out a small sigh of relief. He had managed to get through the written test without blowing his cover. Now all that was left was to see if he and his team had passed. Ibiki scanned the room, a predatory glint in his eyes as he prepared to give the final results. As the tension in the room finally eased up after Anko's rather eccentric entrance, Naruto found himself smirking. He always enjoyed the chaos that seemed to follow Anko wherever she went. His interactions with her had only solidified that feeling. She was unpredictable, wild, and unapologetic, much like himself. It was no wonder they got along, in their own strange way. But as much as he enjoyed teasing her, he knew better than to get on her bad side. That woman was deadly serious when she wanted to be. Team 7 and the rest of the rookies filed out of the classroom, the weight of the upcoming second exam pressing on all of them. Naruto stretched his arms lazily. Looking over at Sakura and Sasuke, who seemed to be more in their own heads, mentally preparing for what was next. Sakura was running through every possible scenario in her mind, her training with Hana and Kakashi replaying in her thoughts. She was stronger now, no longer the timid kunoichi who could barely keep up with her team. She had a plan, she was ready for anything. And still, the second exam was the infamous survival test, and the anxiety was hard to ignore. Sasuke, on the other hand, was mostly focused on one thing: strength. He needed to get stronger, to prove himself, to surpass everyone, especially Naruto. His pride was on the line, and every encounter with stronger opponents, like Gaara or even Lee, had stoked the fire of competition inside him. He was itching for the real action, for a chance to show how far he had come. As they neared the gate of Training Ground 44, known better as the Forest of Death, they saw other teams gathering in anticipation. The notorious training ground lived up to its name. The trees loomed high above, their gnarled branches casting eerie shadows across the ground. The air was thick with a sense of danger, and every rustle of the leaves hinted at unseen threats lurking within the forest. Naruto grinned as they approached. "Well, this looks fun," he said, excitement clear in his voice. "Fun?" Sakura said, her eyes wide as she glanced at the dark, ominous forest. "Naruto, this place is a nightmare waiting to happen." "Yeah, but that's what makes it interesting, isn't it?" Naruto shot back, practically bouncing on his feet in anticipation. "It's the perfect place to show what we can really do." Sasuke simply smirked, his hands stuffed in his pockets. "Let's just focus on surviving, Dobe." As they reached the gate, Anko was already there, her arms crossed and a grin plastered on her face. "Ah, you're here," she said, her voice dripping with amusement. "The famous Team 7, with the little fox brat leading the charge." Naruto rolled his eyes but couldn't help the smirk that crept onto his face. "You just can't go a minute without teasing me, can you?" Anko chuckled darkly, stepping forward until she was face to face with Naruto. "What can I say, kid? You make it too easy. But don't think for a second that I'm going to go easy on you or any of the other genin in there." Her eyes flashed with a predatory gleam. "This isn't going to be a walk in the park. The forest of death has claimed more than a few lives over the years." Hinata, who had been standing nearby with her team, looked visibly nervous at that statement, while Kiba simply growled under his breath in excitement. "Bring it on," Kiba muttered, cracking his knuckles. "Yeah, we'll see if you still have that attitude in a few days," Anko remarked as she turned to the gathered genin, raising her voice to address everyone. "Welcome to Training Ground 44. The second exam is about survival. Inside this forest, you'll be competing against each other to retrieve two scrolls, the Heaven Scroll and the Earth Scroll. Each team will be given one scroll at the start. Your mission is to survive, find the other scroll, and make it to the tower in the center of the forest within 5 days. Fail to get both scrolls, or die along the way, well, let's just say you'll be eliminated from more than just the exam." She paused, letting the gravity of her words sink in. "Oh, and one more thing, don't even think about opening the scrolls before you reach the tower. Do so, and you'll regret it. I promise." Her grin widened, revealing the sharp edge to her words. Naruto gave a small chuckle at Anko's dramatics, while Sasuke and Sakura remained focused. The stakes were clear. It wasn't just about strength anymore. Strategy, endurance, and teamwork were going to be just as important as raw power in the days to come. Anko began distributing the scrolls, and soon Team 7 had their own. A Heaven Scroll. "We'll need to find a team with an Earth Scroll," Sasuke said as he eyed the other groups. "Yeah, and we need to keep them from getting our scroll too," Sakura added. "It's going to be a fight for survival in there." Naruto glanced around, eyes gleaming with excitement as he spotted teams from different villages. The Kumo team with Ayano, Omoi, and Karui stood a little ways off, the latter glaring daggers at him, no doubt remembering his comments from earlier. Suna's team was also nearby, with Gaara standing silent and menacing as ever, his sand shifting subtly around him. "I bet Gaara's team has an Earth Scroll," Naruto said, his grin widening. "Wouldn't that be interesting?" "Stay focused, Dobe," Sasuke muttered. "This isn't about showing off. We get the scrolls, we get to the tower, and we win." Naruto shrugged but didn't argue. Deep down, he knew Sasuke was right, but that didn't mean he couldn't enjoy himself while they were at it. Soon enough, Anko called for everyone's attention again. "All right, it's time. Once you step inside the gates, you're on your own. Your only mission is survival, against the forest, and against each other. Be smart, be ruthless, and above all, try not to die." She flashed one last grin before stepping aside, signaling for the gates to be opened. The massive gates to the Forest of Death creaked and groaned as they were pulled open, revealing the dense, dark jungle within. Shadows moved among the trees, and the air was thick with the sound of insects and distant growls of unseen creatures. It was as if the forest itself was alive, waiting for its next prey. Team 7 stood at the entrance, their expressions serious and focused. This was it, the real start of the Chunin exams. Everything they'd trained for would be tested inside those dark woods. Naruto took a deep breath, his excitement finally giving way to a more focused determination. "Let's do this, guys." With a shared nod, Team 7 stepped through the gates and into the Forest of Death, ready to face whatever challenges awaited them. The moment the gates to Training Ground 44 swung open, Team 7 dashed forward into the dense, looming trees of the Forest of Death. The humid air clung to their skin, and the sounds of distant creatures echoed through the forest, creating an atmosphere that was both eerie and alive. Every sense was on high alert, knowing that danger could come from any direction, whether it be another team or the forest itself. Naruto led the way with a determined expression. Despite his usual carefree demeanor, he was focused now, his instincts guiding him. "We need to find a good spot to gather our bearings," he said as they weaved through the thick underbrush. "The real danger is going to come from the other teams. We can't afford to get ambushed." Sasuke and Sakura followed close behind, keeping their eyes sharp for any signs of movement. The tension in the air was palpable. Everyone knew this forest was designed to turn even the most capable shinobi into prey. But for Team 7, the stakes felt even higher. Naruto's earlier warning about Kabuto still rang in their minds. They had to be prepared for anything. After several minutes of running, they finally stopped at a small clearing, concealed by thick trees and vines. It was the perfect place to take a moment to strategize. Sakura leaned against a tree, catching her breath. "So, what now? Do we wait for another team to come to us?" Naruto shook his head, crouching low and scanning the area. "No, we don't have time for that. Remember, we have a heaven scroll. We need to find a team with an earth scroll and take it from them. The longer we wait, the more vulnerable we become." Sasuke, always keen on action, nodded. "Then let's hunt. There's no point in sitting around. The faster we get the second scroll, the sooner we can get out of here." Naruto grinned, his eyes gleaming with excitement. "Exactly what I was thinking, team." As they began to strategize their next move, a sudden rustle in the trees caught their attention. Instantly, all three of them tensed, ready for battle. "Stay sharp," Naruto whispered, his eyes narrowing as he scanned the canopy above. "We're not alone." Sasuke activated his Sharingan, his eyes spinning as he sought out any chakra signatures. Sakura tightened her grip on her kunai, her heart racing as her senses heightened, every sound now amplified in the stillness of the forest. From the shadows, three figures dropped into the clearing, a team of rain ninja, their headbands gleaming in the faint light filtering through the trees. They looked slightly older and more experienced than Team 7, their faces grim and determined. The leader of the group stepped forward, a wicked smile on his face as he eyed Naruto and the others. "Looks like we found ourselves some fresh prey," the rain ninja said, his voice low and mocking. "Hand over your scroll, and maybe we won't have to hurt you too badly." Naruto chuckled, stepping forward without an ounce of fear. "Sorry, we're not looking to share. But you guys look like you might have something we need." The rain ninja sneered. "You think you can take us, brat?" Before anyone could blink, Sasuke shot forward, faster than expected, aiming a kick at the leader. The rain ninja barely blocked it, but the force of Sasuke's attack sent him skidding backward. Sasuke landed gracefully, his Sharingan blazing as he prepared for another assault. "That was a warning," Sasuke said coldly. "You're out of your league." With that, the battle began. The two other rain ninjas lunged forward, one attacking Naruto while the other engaged Sakura. Naruto dodged easily, his reflexes sharp as he countered with a swift strike to the Rain Ninja's gut, sending him stumbling back. Sakura, meanwhile, used the training Hana had drilled into her to block and evade her opponent's strikes. She wasn't the same kunoichi from the academy, her movements were more precise, her reactions faster. She ducked under a wild punch, delivering a well-placed kick to the Rain Ninja's side, knocking him off balance. But it was Naruto who was enjoying himself the most. He grinned wildly as he summoned several clones, surrounding his opponent in a flash. "Let's see how you deal with this," he shouted, as all the clones charged in unison. The Rain Ninja's eyes widened in surprise, barely able to react as he was overwhelmed by a barrage of punches and kicks. In seconds, he was down, unconscious on the forest floor. Sasuke had already finished his opponent as well, his Sharingan having predicted every move the Rain Ninja made, allowing him to effortlessly counter every attack. With a final swift kick to the chest, the Rain Ninja crumpled to the ground. "Too easy," Sasuke muttered, turning to check on Naruto and Sakura. He was pleased to see that they had already handled their own fights. "Nice job, Sakura," Naruto said with a grin, clearly impressed. Sakura, though winded, smiled back. "Thanks. But we're not done yet." They turned their attention to the leader of the Rain team, who was now struggling to his feet, glaring at them with pure hatred in his eyes. "Why you think you've won?" he spat. "This forest will eat you alive." Naruto walked over to him, his smile never fading. "Yeah, well, thanks for the tip. But we're more interested in something else." With a swift movement, Naruto reached into the Rain Ninja's pouch and pulled out a scroll, the Earth Scroll. He tossed it up in the air, catching it with a smirk. "Looks like we're done here," Naruto said, turning back to his team. "Let's head for the tower." As they prepared to leave, the Rain Ninja slumped to the ground, defeated and humiliated. Team 7 didn't spare them another glance as they quickly disappeared into the forest, their mission one step closer to completion. As they moved through the dense foliage, the tension between them began to ease. The thrill of the fight had been enough to refocus them, and now with both scrolls in hand, their only goal was reaching the tower. "That wasn't so bad," Sakura said, her confidence growing. "Don't get too comfortable," Sasuke warned. "There are still stronger teams out there." Naruto nodded in agreement, his senses still on high alert. "Yeah, but we'll take them down too." Despite the looming threats, there was a sense of camaraderie between them now. They had fought together, trusted each other, and won. And that bond would only grow stronger as they faced more challenges in the forest of death. The real test, however, was only beginning. And Team 7 was ready. Team 7 was still reeling from the sudden attack by the AIM Genin when Sakura, breathing a sigh of relief, commented, "We're lucky." Naruto, though, wasn't so convinced. "Lucky?" he shot back incredulously, leaping between the trees. "You weren't the one attacked while peeing, Sakura-chan. If I hadn't sensed him and switched with a clone, I could have been captured." "Quit complaining, Dobe," Sasuke interjected coolly, his words as sharp as ever. Naruto was just about to retort when he felt it, something slithering in the air, something malevolent. His haki flared, warning him. "Look out," he shouted, shoving both of his teammates aside just as a gigantic snake's tail lashed out. It crashed into him instead, sending him flying violently through the trees. "Naruto!" Sakura screamed, but her voice was cut off by an overwhelming wave of pure killing intent. They froze, sensing the presence of a predator. "I wouldn't worry about that boy," a voice echoed through the air, dripping with malice. The Kusa Kunoichi, no, it wasn't a Kunoichi, smiled wickedly. "He's either dead, or will be soon." A cold laugh followed, paralyzing the two remaining members of Team 7. "But I'm the one you should be worried about." "Kukukuku," Naruto groaned, pushing himself to his feet, his body aching from the blow. "Ugh, that was painful," he muttered, looking up only to see two figures standing atop the snake that had knocked him away. He narrowed his eyes. Something about the snake's obedience was off. This wasn't a wild creature. Then it hit him. Orochimaru. His blood ran cold. Only the crazy snake lady, as he jokingly called her before, had the power to summon these beasts. His suspicion was quickly confirmed when the two shinobi slipped up, mentioning Orochimaru's plans for Sasuke. Panic surged through him. He had to act fast. In a burst of Haushoku Haki, Naruto's sheer willpower overwhelmed the snake, forcing it to retreat to its summoning realm. With their footing lost, the two Kusa shinobi flailed in the air. Seizing the opportunity, Naruto drew his sword, Inraiha, and struck. In a flash, one of the shinobi was cut down, reduced to ashes by a wave of searing fire. The other barely managed to shield himself but paid the price, losing his right hand in the process. As the dust settled, the remaining shinobi cursed, vowing revenge, but Naruto was already steps ahead. "Where's my sword?" he asked mockingly, and the man's eyes widened in horror as he realized the burning blade had already pierced his heart from behind. Naruto vanished into a puff of smoke. The one in front of him was merely a shadow clone. With the enemies dispatched, Naruto steeled himself, focusing on his teammates. Sasuke and Sakura were in danger. He couldn't waste any more time. 10 minutes later, Naruto arrived at the scene, just in time to see Orochimaru standing menacingly over Sakura, his snake-like features twisted into a sadistic grin. Sasuke lay unconscious in her arms, bearing the cursed mark of the snake Sannin. "What have you done to Sasuke-kun, you monster?" Sakura cried, her voice thick with fear and desperation. Orochimaru smiled, toying with her. "I gave him a gift. But you won't live long enough to see it bloom." A snake slithered from his mouth, drawing out the infamous Kusanagi blade. He raised it, intent on finishing Sakura, but before he could strike, his sword clashed with a fiery blade. "You will not hurt my precious people." Naruto's voice rang out, fierce and determined. "Naruto." Sakura gasped in relief, her heart swelling with hope. Orochimaru's eyes flickered with interest. "Inraiha, huh? It seems my men failed." "Impressive, Naruto-kun. But unfortunately for you, Sasuke-kun is already marked." He licked his lips, relishing the chaos. "And since I can't have you, I'll have to kill you both." Naruto's eyes darted to Sasuke's cursed mark. Orochimaru had placed the same vile seal on him that he'd used on Enko years ago. But Naruto wasn't going to let that stand. "Sakura-chan, get back. I've got a plan. Whatever happens, don't interfere." With his fire sword blazing, Naruto charged Orochimaru, the forest exploding in a burst of chakra and flames as they clashed. Trees ignited, the force of their battle tearing through the landscape. Orochimaru, frustrated by the boy's resilience, slithered through the branches like a snake, dodging and weaving, but Naruto was relentless. The battle raged on, but despite Naruto's raw power, Orochimaru's experience and strength were overwhelming. The young Jinchuriki struggled to keep up, barely holding his own as the snake Sannin toyed with him. But Naruto had laid a trap, using every bit of his cunning. Just as Orochimaru prepared to land a final blow, a golden disk of fire flew through the air, slicing clean through his neck. The headless body collapsed as Naruto, panting, sealed the ashes with a scroll. It seemed like it was over, until Orochimaru reappeared, shedding his skin like a snake, reborn. "You're a pest, Naruto-kun," Orochimaru sneered, his blade piercing through Naruto's shoulder, lifting him into the air. "I should have killed you sooner. But now, you'll watch as your precious Sakura dies before your eyes." Naruto, bloodied and barely conscious, grabbed Orochimaru's ankle. "Don't. The snake Sanin's smirk deepened as he turned toward Sakura. He raised his sword for the killing blow, savoring the fear in her wide eyes. But then he froze, completely immobilized. A chuckle broke the tense silence. Naruto, struggling to stand, grinned weakly. "You really are arrogant, Orochimaru." His voice, though labored, was filled with confidence. "That was my plan all along." Through a mixture of blood-seal fuinjutsu and sheer will, Naruto had trapped Orochimaru, rendering him immobile. His chakra disrupted, the Sannin couldn't use any of his abilities. Naruto drew his blade once more, the golden fire burning bright. "This isn't just the end of your body," he whispered. "I'm destroying your soul." The blade pierced Orochimaru's heart, and for the first time, the notorious snake Sannin knew fear. As his body crumbled to ash, a golden flame rose from Sasuke's cursed mark, burning away the evil seal. Naruto, barely standing, sealed away Orochimaru's remains, and stumbled toward his teammates, smiling faintly. "Are you okay, Sakura-chan?" he asked weakly before collapsing, the poison from Orochimaru's blade coursing through his veins. Sakura, panicked but determined, began healing him as best she could. "You reckless idiot," she cried, tears in her eyes. "Even after everything, you still think about us first." Naruto, fighting to stay conscious, smiled. "That's just how I am. Sakura-chan. I'm sorry." Before she could respond, he passed out, leaving her to tend to him. But even in his unconscious state, Naruto had once again proven his unwavering devotion to his team. He was their reckless, stubborn, and fiercely protective Naruto, willing to face any danger to keep them safe. The clearing in the forest was eerily still, the tension thick in the air as Zaku Abumi glared at Sakura with fury in his eyes. His voice echoed through the trees, filled with anger and frustration. "You bitch," he screamed, clutching his stomach in pain. The Oto Genin was still reeling from Sakura's surprise attack, a sharp knee to the groin that had left him doubled over. Their mission, which had seemed so simple at first, was spiraling out of control. Orochimaru had given them the order to kill Uchiha Sasuke, but Zaku and his team had found themselves facing one setback after another. They had managed to get the upper hand on Sasuke, using their deadly techniques to knock him out cold. But when they were about to finish the job, a green-clad stranger, Rock Lee, had intervened, forcing them into an unexpected battle. Lee had fought valiantly, even nearly crushing Dosu, but eventually, Team Dosu's combined efforts had overwhelmed him. And just when they thought they had victory within their grasp, another Konoha team had shown up. Shikamaru's shadow manipulation had temporarily trapped Dosu, and Ino's mind transfer jutsu had almost hit its mark. But Zaku's Zenkaha, a blast of compressed air, had forced Ino to miss, leaving the Konoha Genin vulnerable. One by one, they were beaten down, and Zaku had thought that this, finally, would be the end of it. But then she, the pink-haired kunoichi, Sakura, had interfered. Desperation had driven her to attack, throwing herself at Dosu and decking him in the head. Her bravery was met with swift punishment. Zaku had retaliated with another blast of his Zenkaha, sending her to the ground. When Kin grabbed her by her hair, Sakura had cut it off, refusing to be anyone's victim. And then, with a fury Zaku hadn't expected, she'd landed a vicious blow to his most vulnerable area. He had returned the favor, blasting her again, this time intent on finishing the job. Now, he stood over her, kunai in hand, ready to end her life. "I was going to enjoy you," he spat, raising the blade high. "But now, you're going to die, bitch." Sakura braced herself, closing her eyes, expecting the end. But instead of pain, she heard the sickening crunch of bone. Her eyes flew open, and standing between her and Zaku was none other than Naruto, his fist buried in Zaku's face, his nose smashed and blood pouring from the wound. "Naruto!" Sakura exclaimed, her voice filled with relief and disbelief. Her teammate had come to save her. Zaku staggered back, clutching his broken nose. Who the hell do you think why? His words cut off abruptly when he looked into Naruto's eyes. There was something wrong, something terrifying. His eyes were vacant, lifeless, as if he wasn't fully conscious. What the fuck is going on here? Dosu, who had been watching from the sidelines, spoke up, his voice low and tense. His eyes, he's unconscious. Zaku's confusion deepened. Then how the hell is he moving around? How should I know? Dosu snapped, his own fear starting to show. Zaku, still enraged, refused to back down. Doesn't matter. I'll finish him just like I did the others. He aimed his hands at Naruto, preparing to unleash another Zenkaha blast. Die. But before Zaku could release his attack, Naruto moved with blinding speed. In a single, fluid motion, he closed the distance between them, trapping Zaku's arms in a painful hold. His armpits locked over Zaku's forearms, his hands gripping just above the elbows. With a sickening snap, Naruto bent Zaku's arms in the opposite direction, breaking them at the elbows. Zaku screamed in agony, but Naruto didn't stop. Two sharp knees to the stomach left Zaku gasping for air and coughing up blood. Then, with brutal efficiency, Naruto grabbed Zaku's head and delivered a crushing knee to his jaw, shattering it. Zaku flew across the dirt, landing in an unconscious heap. Dosu, realizing the danger, tried to attack from behind, but Naruto, even in his unconscious state, was faster. He spun around, his hand coated in a black sheen, Busoshoku Haki. With a single strike, Naruto shattered Dosu's melody arm into pieces. The Oto Genin barely managed to pull his arm away in time to avoid it being completely broken. But he wasn't quick enough to dodge the next attack. Naruto's foot, also blackened with haki, slammed into his chest, breaking several ribs and sending him flying backward. Kin, seeing her teammates decimated in a matter of moments, panicked. Desperation took over, and she pulled out two Senbon needles, ready to fight despite her fear. Naruto didn't even turn to look at her. He simply extended his left hand, and his golden katana, in Raiha, flew through the air from where it had been resting in a nearby hollow tree, landing perfectly in his grip. Kin froze, her confidence crumbling. Kin, don't. Dosu called out, his voice pained but urgent. But we have to fight. We have to complete the mission. Kin argued, her hands trembling as she clutched her needles. Dosu, still struggling to breathe, shook his head. He just destroyed us while unconscious. There's no way we can win. You're our medic. If you fall, we're finished. His voice was low, almost pleading. We need to retreat. Kin hesitated, but the truth was undeniable. They were outmatched. Dosu turned his attention to Sakura, who had been watching the entire fight in stunned silence. Pinky, he called out, trying to negotiate. We'll give you our scroll if you let us go. Sakura blinked, snapping out of her shock. She looked at Naruto, her teammate, standing there with vacant eyes, moving with deadly precision even though he wasn't truly conscious. She knew they could finish them, especially with Naruto in this state, but there was something more pressing on her mind. She hadn't been able to heal all the poison from Naruto's body after his fight with Orochimaru. He had to be in pain, even if he couldn't show it right now. They needed to get him out of this fight. Okay, she said, her voice steady but firm. Just go, quickly, before I change my mind. The Oto team didn't need to be told twice. They gathered themselves as best they could and fled, leaving the clearing as fast as their battered bodies would allow. Once they were gone, Sakura turned her attention to Naruto. He was still standing, his katana in hand, but his eyes were blank, as if he were in a trance. Tears welled up in Sakura's eyes as she approached him, her heart aching at the sight of him like this. She gently wrapped her arms around him, pulling him into a tight embrace. Naruto, she whispered, her voice trembling. We're safe now. You don't have to fight anymore. As soon as her words reached his ears, Naruto's body went limp, his katana clattering to the ground. But Sakura didn't let go. She held him tighter, her tears falling onto his shoulder. I'm sorry, she whispered softly, her voice barely audible over the quiet rustling of the forest. I'm so sorry. Naruto, her reckless and loyal teammate, had once again fought to protect her, even when he wasn't fully conscious. And as she held him, the weight of his sacrifice pressed down on her heart, making her realize just how much he truly cared for his team. The next morning, Sakura woke with a long yawn, stretching as the sunlight filtered through the trees. She blinked blearily, suddenly alarmed to see 3 extra people inside the tree hollow they were using as shelter. But then the memories of the previous day came flooding back, and she relaxed. After the intense battle with the Odo team, Rock Lee's team had come to retrieve him, and then left shortly afterward. Team 10, Shikamaru, Ino, and Choji, had woken up not long after and, in an unexpected but strategic move, decided to team up with Team 7. Sakura had given them the scroll from the Odo team since her own team no longer needed it. Not surprisingly, Shikamaru and Choji hadn't believed that Naruto was the one who had beaten the Odo team. They assumed it had been Rock Lee's teammates. Their loss, Sakura had thought. She was about to relax again when something struck her, and her eyes widened in panic. Wait, 3 people? Sasuke-kun, Ino. Choji. Her mind raced. Where's Naruto? Heart pounding, Sakura bolted out of the tree and ran toward Shikamaru, who was lazily keeping watch nearby. Where's Naruto? She demanded, her voice tinged with worry. Without even turning his head, Shikamaru sighed. He went out hunting. Said he'd be fine on his own. Sakura's eyes narrowed, her worry morphing into frustration. And you just let him go? She nearly screamed. Shikamaru raised a brow, his tone as relaxed as ever. He said he'd be fine. Besides, he wanted to get as far away from you as possible. That caught her off guard. What? Why would he? The lazy ninja finally turned to face her, smirking slightly. Well, when he woke up, someone had their head on his chest, arm wrapped around him, and leg tangled up with his. Meanwhile, he had his arm wrapped around your shoulders, hugging you. He thought he put you in that position while you slept, so he figured you'd be mad and wanted to avoid the backlash. Sakura's face flushed a bright red as Shikamaru continued, clearly amused. But, if Naruto knew that you were the one who actually initiated it, snuggling up to him all night, smiling like you were in a dream. Well, who knows? Maybe he would have stayed longer. Shut up, she yelled, mortified, as Shikamaru's chuckle followed her back into the tree. Her heart was still racing, not only from the embarrassment but from the lingering confusion of her own feelings. Meanwhile, deep in the forest, Naruto leaped from branch to branch, his eyes gleaming with excitement. He wasn't alone. A massive tiger padded along the ground beneath him, moving in sync with the boy. It wasn't by accident that Naruto was riding this creature earlier, he had saved the tiger from a pack of wolves the previous day. Now, using his Haoshoku no Haki, he'd shown the tiger who was the real alpha in the forest. Since then, the giant cat had been a loyal companion. The tiger let out a low growl, and Naruto laughed. Yeah, I know. It's just up ahead, he said, sensing something, or rather someone, nearby. Moments later, Naruto arrived at a clearing just in time to see a massive bear, claws raised, about to strike down a girl. She was frozen in terror, her red hair streaked with dirt, glasses lying on the ground beside her. Red hair. Naruto's mind clicked. He understood now why she had felt familiar when he sensed her presence. She's like me. Without wasting a second, Naruto landed between the girl and the bear, unleashing a powerful burst of haki. The bear stopped in its tracks, backing away in fear before fleeing into the woods. My haki feels stronger, Naruto thought, a small smile forming on his lips. Whatever was blocking it before is gone now. The girl, still trembling, hadn't yet realized what had happened. Naruto crouched down, picking up her glasses and gently offering them to her. "Hey, are you okay? These are yours, right?" The redhead blinked, slowly reaching for the glasses, but she hesitated, startled. "Who are you? Where's the bear?" Naruto grinned. "Scared it off. But aren't you supposed to introduce yourself before asking for someone else's name? That's what Sakura-chan always says." He scratched his head sheepishly. The girl narrowed her eyes, clutching her glasses as she put them back on. "Karen," she said cautiously. "Full name, please," Naruto said with a playful smile, though there was a firmness behind his words that startled her. Karen took a step back, suddenly feeling uneasy. Look, here's my scroll," she stammered, thrusting the item forward. "Just take it and let me go." Naruto shook his head, laughing softly. "I'm not here for your scroll. I came to meet you." His smile softened. "Just tell me your full name. I have a feeling I already know it." Karen's heart raced. She didn't understand why, but something about this boy made her nervous. "Uzumaki," she said at last. "Karen Uzumaki." Naruto's grin widened. "Ha! I knew it." He pointed at the tiger, which had now emerged from the trees. "Told you I'd be right." The tiger growled in response, its low rumble causing Karen to jump. What the? That tiger. Are you talking to it?" Naruto gave her a playful shrug. "Beats me. But he's a good friend. I promised him some food when we got back to camp." Karen deadpanned, her nerves fading into disbelief. "You're a baka." "Yeah, I've heard that before," Naruto said with a chuckle. He straightened up, taking a small, more formal bow. "But anyway, I'm Uzumaki Naruto of the Royal Uzumaki line. Formal head of the clan." "Liar." Karen blurted out, her disbelief giving way to shock. "My mom told me before she died that there was only one person left from the royal line, and that was Kushina Uzumaki," Naruto finished, his voice softening. "My mom. She died the day I was born." Karen fell silent, guilt washing over her. I didn't know. I'm sorry." "It's okay," Naruto reassured her, his tone kind. "Where are your teammates?" he asked after a moment. Karen's face hardened. "Dead. They tried to force themselves on me, but the bear attacked." "Good riddance," she said coldly. "I hated them, just like I hate Kusa. They never helped my parents when they were alive. Called us outsiders. Traitors." Naruto frowned but then smiled gently. "Then stay here. With me." Karen's breath hitched, her eyes widening. "Are really?" Naruto nodded, his smile bright. "Yeah. Your family, my cousin. As head of the Uzumaki clan, I can protect you from Kusa. And I'll make sure they pay for what they did to your parents. You'll get justice." He shrugged again. "Or, if you don't want to live with me, you can use the retribution money to live wherever you want." Karen's eyes filled with tears, and before she could stop herself, she flung her arms around Naruto, hugging him tightly. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you so much." Naruto patted her back awkwardly, unsure of how to respond at first. "Hey, it's okay. We're family, right?" After a moment, Karen pulled away, wiping her eyes. "Who are Gigi and DGG?" she asked, trying to change the subject. Naruto grinned. "Oh, Gigi is the Hokage, and DGG is the daimyo of the Land of Fire." Karen's jaw dropped. The Hokage and daimyo are like family to you? Yeah, Naruto replied nonchalantly. I call them that, and they don't mind. So, I guess it's okay. Karen blinked in disbelief. You're friends with the two most powerful people in the Land of Fire, and you just call them Gigi and DGG? Naruto tilted his head, confused. They're my precious people, not connections. Karen stared at him, her mind reeling. You're something else. Naruto grinned. Thanks. He gestured for her to follow. Come on, let's head back. You'll meet my team and a few other friends. With that, the two Uzumakis, along with their new tiger companion, made their way through the forest, getting to know each other as they went. Though they had only just met, the bond between them, forged by family ties and shared struggles, was already growing stronger. Half an hour later, Naruto emerged from the forest with a bright grin, calling out to the group. Hey guys! How are you doing? Before he could even get another word out, Sakura ran straight toward him, her expression a mix of relief and frustration. Naruto, she screamed, her voice trembling with concern. She didn't seem to notice the girl walking beside him or the enormous tiger following closely behind. Her focus was entirely on Naruto. What were you thinking? Going out there alone? Do you know how much I was worried about you? Naruto blinked, looking genuinely confused. You were worried? Sakura's cheeks flushed pink. Of course, Baka. You're important to me. Her words stumbled over each other, her voice lowering as her blush deepened. She glanced away, embarrassed, but Naruto's signature wide smile in response made her heart skip a beat. Besides, she stammered, trying to regain her composure, I couldn't get all the poison out from that sword. It's stupidly strong, Naruto. You should have told me. Naruto's expression softened. Yeah, I figured that. I can't move my left hand too much without it hurting. I probably need an antidote, but until then, I'll manage. He shrugged, still smiling, as though the pain was just another inconvenience. Despite his reassurance, Sakura didn't hesitate to run a quick diagnostic jutsu over him, her chakra sweeping through his system. You're so reckless, she muttered under her breath, though her worry was evident in the way her brow furrowed in concentration. Shikamaru, observing from the side, sighed, leaning back against a tree. Why'd you pick up strays though? It's going to be troublesome to deal with them. His lazy voice shifted the attention of the entire group toward the girl standing beside Naruto, Karen, and the massive tiger at his heels. Naruto's cheerful demeanor darkened for a moment as he shot Shikamaru a cold glare, his usual warmth replaced with a steely edge. But before Naruto could say anything, Sasuke stepped in. Without warning, the Uchiha delivered a swift punch to Shikamaru's face, sending him sprawling to the ground with a loud thud. What the hell, man? Choji exclaimed, eyes wide as he scrambled over to his fallen friend. Sasuke didn't flinch. His tone was sharp, almost angry. If the dobe brought them here, they must be important to him. His dark eyes narrowed as he glanced down at Shikamaru. I'm not going to let you disrespect my friend, especially after he saved me from becoming some pale pedophile's plaything. Shikamaru winced, rubbing his jaw where Sasuke had struck him, but the weight of the Uchiha's words hung heavy in the air. Everyone fell silent for a moment, the casual tension replaced with something more serious. Naruto's gaze softened, though his voice remained cold as he addressed the group. This is Karen Uzumaki, he said, gesturing to the red-haired girl standing beside him, who looked just as shocked as everyone else. She's my cousin, and the tiger is my friend. He's just here to have breakfast with us. Everyone stared, dumbstruck by the sudden revelation. The idea that another Uzumaki existed, and was standing right in front of them, was beyond surprising. Even Shikamaru, usually quick to dismiss anything that wasn't directly his problem, looked taken aback. Karen shifted awkwardly under their stares, clearly uncomfortable with the attention. "Oh. Shikamaru began, his usual laid-back demeanor faltering as he tried to offer some kind of apology, but Naruto cut him off before he could finish. "Team," Naruto said, turning to Sasuke, "start the fire. Karen, you're going to help me with making breakfast." His voice was firm, commanding. He glanced over at Ino next. "Ino, get a hold of your teammate." The Yamanaka girl, still recovering from the shock of everything, just nodded mutely. Naruto then addressed the entire group. "Once we eat, we're heading for the tower. Let's move." As he walked toward the center of the clearing, where Sasuke had already begun gathering sticks for the fire, Naruto paused and turned back. His bright blue eyes found Sakura's, and his usual warmth returned in full force. He smiled that charming, carefree smile she knew all too well. "Oh, and Sakura-chan," he said, giving her a thumbs up, "you look even more beautiful with your hair short." The comment hit Sakura like a lightning bolt. Her face turned neon red as she gaped at him, completely flustered. Before she could even form a response, Naruto had already turned back and walked off with Karen, leaving her standing there, burning with embarrassment. Behind her, Shikamaru, now sitting up and nursing his bruised jaw, muttered under his breath, "Troublesome." Though even he couldn't hide a smirk. In the center of the clearing, Naruto and Karen had set up camp, and Sasuke was focused on getting the fire started. Despite the weight of everything that had happened, the battles, the injuries, the tension with Orochimaru's looming presence, there was an odd sense of peace settling over the group as they prepared breakfast. Karen was still a bit nervous, feeling the weight of everyone's attention on her. As she helped Naruto with the meal preparations, she stole quick glances at him, trying to figure him out. He was so different from anyone she'd ever met, so open, so kind. It felt strange to be treated like family after all these years of feeling alone. "You're really something, you know that," she said quietly, more to herself than to him. Naruto just grinned, handing her a knife to help cut up some vegetables. "Thanks. I get that a lot." Karen chuckled, her nervousness easing as they worked together. Family, she thought. Maybe things were finally starting to change. As the fire crackled and the scent of cooking food began to fill the air, the group settled into a calm, almost domestic rhythm, something rare in the dangerous environment of the Forest of Death. There was still a long journey ahead, filled with challenges, but for now, in this small moment, they had a chance to breathe. In the dimly lit tower room, the tension was thick as Team 7 and their allies arrived. The air was still, only disturbed by the sudden sound of a summoning jutsu, poof. Kakashi appeared in his usual relaxed manner, his single visible eye crinkling in a lazy greeting. "Hello, my cute little genins, and a new person. I'm happy to tell you that," but before he could finish, Naruto stepped forward, his tone sharp and uncharacteristically serious. "Save it, Hatake," he cut in, voice cold and determined. "There are more important things to deal with right now." He gestured to the redhead beside him. "This is Karen Uzumaki." Kakashi's brow furrowed in confusion, but before he could respond, Naruto continued, his voice edged with a warning. "You have to protect her for the next few days. If she gets hurt, you'll die. Even if it's the last thing I do, I'll make sure of it. Do you understand?" The threat hung in the air, and Kakashi's single eye widened slightly at the intensity behind Naruto's words. He hadn't seen his usually cheerful, loud-mouthed student like this before, so fierce, so protective. After a brief pause, he nodded, recognizing that this was not the moment to push back. "Good," Naruto said curtly, relaxing just slightly now that the message had been delivered. "We were attacked by Orochimaru in the forest. I need to speak to Gigi, now." "Orochimaru?" Kakashi's calm demeanor faltered, his voice urgent. "What happened?" he asked, stepping closer, his usual nonchalance evaporating in the face of the serious situation. Naruto, however, was already walking past him. "Not now," he said over his shoulder. "If you want the details, ask Team or Sakura-chan later, but make sure no one else is around. Karen's a censor, she'll help you keep the conversation private." Kakashi, always quick on the uptake, nodded again, his thoughts racing. He wanted to know what had happened, but Naruto was right, this wasn't the time for interrogation. "The Hokage is on the 4th floor. He has the whole level to himself," Kakashi offered, his voice measured now, seeing the urgency in Naruto's steps. Naruto stopped for a brief moment, his voice taking on an even heavier tone. "One more thing, Kakashi Hatake." He turned back slightly, his eyes gleaming with something far beyond his years. "I'm not speaking to you as your genin right now, or even as part of Team 7. I'm speaking to you as the formal head of the Uzumaki clan." His gaze locked onto Kakashi's, unwavering. "If Karen Uzumaki gets hurt, the Uzumaki clan will declare a blood feud against you." Kakashi stiffened, the weight of Naruto's words sinking in. This wasn't a mere childish threat. He knew the significance of a blood feud. Even Sasuke's eyes widened slightly at the serious implications, while Sakura looked confused, her gaze flicking between Naruto and their sensei. "Don't you think you're going too far, Dobe?" Sasuke asked, his usual cool tone cutting into the silence. Sakura, still trying to grasp the situation, spoke up. "Wait, what's a blood feud?" Kakashi answered her quietly, his voice grave. "A blood feud is a war between clans, one that doesn't end until either the clan head or the target of the feud is dead." Sakura's breath caught in her throat, her eyes widening in shock as she fully understood what Naruto was threatening. This wasn't just about protecting a comrade. This was something much deeper, this was about family, and Naruto was willing to go to extreme lengths to protect his. Naruto's face remained set in stone. "She's the first blood relative I've ever met," he said, his voice laced with emotion despite his hard exterior. "I'll be damned if I let anyone from Kusa or any enemy of mine touch her. Not after everything." His words resonated with a deep resolve, one that was rarely heard from the usually carefree boy. His mind was set, and no one could talk him down from this. Without another word, Naruto turned on his heel and headed toward the staircase, determination etched in every step. Kakashi, still processing what Naruto had just declared, tried to regain his usual light tone. "Naruto, where are you going?" Naruto didn't stop. "I've got a cancer to remove, a cancer that's been plaguing this village for too long," he said, his voice cold as steel, leaving the room with those parting words. As the door closed behind him, the room fell into silence. Everyone was left grappling with the weight of what had just been said. Sasuke, arms crossed, looked down at the floor, deep in thought. He understood, perhaps better than anyone else, what it meant to have something, or someone, worth fighting for, even if it meant taking drastic measures. Sakura, meanwhile, still stared at the door, her mind racing with questions. She had always known Naruto cared about his friends, but this was something else. The depth of his loyalty and the lengths he was willing to go to protect his newfound family, it shook her to the core. Kakashi stood there, silent for a moment longer, contemplating the seriousness of Naruto's words. He had underestimated his student's resolve. He had seen the boy's potential, yes, but this? The weight of leadership and the responsibilities Naruto was already shouldering were far beyond what Kakashi had expected. "Well," he muttered to himself, his voice barely audible. "Things just got a lot more complicated." For a long moment, no one spoke. The tower's quiet hum was the only sound as the group absorbed what had just transpired. Finally, Sasuke broke the silence, his voice gruff but laced with the same loyalty that had always connected him to Naruto, even when they didn't see eye to eye. "He's serious, you know. About protecting her." About all of this. Kakashi nodded, his eye softening as he looked at the door Naruto had just left through. Yeah. I know. The fourth Hokage's son, the Uzumaki clan's last scion, was finally stepping into his own. And Kakashi realized, with a slight tinge of pride and worry, that Naruto was no longer the same loud-mouthed kid from a year ago. Naruto Uzumaki was becoming someone far greater than any of them had anticipated. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, smash that like button and subscribe for more content. Support the original author by clicking their profile link in the pinned comment of the first video of this series. They deserve the love. Want early access and exclusive content? Join my Patreon community, link below. Your support fuels these videos. Drop a comment with your thoughts, and I'll catch you in the next video. Stay entertained, stay safe.